Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of the Stacey West podcast. We're not sticking a number on this one, but I am your host, Ben, and I'm joined by Gary. You all right, mate?
Very well, mate. Thank you. Very well indeed. Are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm very excited about this one because we've got a very special episode for everybody today. We approached a couple of folks at the football club to say, we've got a few questions. Can we put them to you? And they were kind enough to oblige. So we might as well get straight into it. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Stacey West podcast. Again, I suppose for one of them, it's a while since he's been on, but he's getting his numbers up. Liam Scully and Jez George. How are we doing, folks? You all right?
Very well, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting us on, and pleasure to be with you.
Nice to be with you outside the window.
That's coming up. We're getting ready
Sure.
for the last days of January. Two really big smiles there as well, which I like. It's always nice to start a podcast with some smiles. So shall we get straight on with the questions, and we'll pick up one of the worst bits of news that we've had over the last few weeks. James Collins' injury. Does it mean we need to recruit another striker in January?
So I think before I answer that, Gary, and this isn't a political question answer, I will answer it properly, but like thoughts are with James. I met James today. We phoned him last week. Everybody's obviously trying to rally around him because, it's just such bad news for him, for his family, for the club, but mostly our thoughts are with him. 35 years old, I think last Monday. Innocuous challenge on the Tuesday, and then suddenly the whole world looks different for him. So most important thing at the moment, we look after him, we rally around him. James being James was typical Colo in the building today, and fair play to him. I said to him when I met him that that's a brilliant mask that he puts on, and we all do that to some degree at different times, but his impact in the building on the group is so profound, it's so big, that obviously James being James knew that he has to come in and be positive and bounce around the place, even if he's not feeling that himself. So surgery, hopefully next week. All of the right bits of care being done for James, all the right information from specialists, etc. That's our prime aim at the moment, is just help him get through that. And no doubt, knowing his character, personality, everything about him, he'll come back from such a big setback. So first of all, just our thoughts with James, and he'll be at a game soon. He didn't feel like it was the right time the other night when we just announced it, but he will definitely be at a game. So supporters will be able to show their affection for him and their respect to him as well. In answer to your question, we think we've got three really good centre forwards, and we think that they have all got slightly different attributes in terms of Freddie, primarily back to goal, real physicality, obviously can get down the sides of people as well. Rob Street, pace, power, has done a really important job for the team for a lot of this season out of position. I think he's one start as number 9 in League One. He scored the winner against Stevenage in arguably our best home performance of the season. And we see loads to come from Rob, and we know he's a number 9, not a right winger. And Justin Abikru, really exciting talent, pace in behind, goal threat. All three of them have slightly different attributes, but we think all three are very, very hard to improve on in this league. And I think any other club would like any one of those three. So, for us now, it's a big opportunity for them. We also know, obviously, Housey's injury was a blow to us. Ben's done a really good job in every other position, really, and his pressing is like literally, it might be an exaggeration to say it, but I genuinely believe he's like a world-class presser. Like, he's absolutely outstanding without the ball. And he's created a little niche for himself coming in against Luton and scoring those couple of goals. So it's not like we don't have forward options. We have Frankie at least till January, and we got to see how he performs in the next 6 to 8 games as well. But our trust is with those three to fight out for that number 9 shirt between them.
Just a real quick word as well on Freddie. Obviously reached 100 appearances on Tuesday night for the club. Incredibly proud moment, both for him and for the club, but also more justification for the excellent academy setup that we've got.
Yeah, it's great credit to Fred, isn't it? I'm pretty sure his debut in the league was away at Sheffield Wednesday. I remember the photo, and I remember being in the director's box actually of Ocean Gallagher, who's obviously, having those role models where you can see what that meant to Freddie on that day, and wanting to emulate that is such an important part of what happens when those players break in and they inspire the rest of the players within the academy. So yeah, Fred's had some bumps in the road, I think it'd be fair to say, wouldn't it? Like we know that that's the life of a professional footballer, and one of the biggest things you've got to do to get from 18 to 21 from age group football, where you're the best player in your age group pretty much all your life, to suddenly having to go in and compete with professional players for a career, is you've got to have resilience. You've got to handle the bumps in the road. And Freddie, from what happened at Chippenham, let's not hide away from that. It was real. What did Slot call it? Sort of like at the crime scene, and Freddie was, and it was probably a lot of blame pinned on him that was unfair. But he went off to Drogheda and he scored his goals, and he beat up most centre backs in Ireland for 6 months, and people still remember him to this day. And then to Walsall and got his goals and had a brilliant run there. And even since he's come back, there's been bumps in the road. But I think there's moments on the pitch where you see what Freddie's all about, and he's our boy. He's still young. He's only whatever he is, 21. To play 100 games is a brilliant achievement, and many, many more to come. And I'm sure many more goals to come alongside that as well.
Great stuff. So given where we are in the league at the moment, obviously we're in a really good position. Are we potentially likely to bring forward any business that we were looking at next summer if it could positively impact the season in January?
Yeah, I think fair question, and completely understand why you asked that. And I guess it's not necessarily kind of as simple as that, but I kind of get the premise. I think our job is always to evaluate the market, the opportunity, what's going on around us, making sure that, ultimately, we make, don't hide away from it. The fact that our absolute ambition at some time and at some point is to get this football club, into the championship and be competitive in the championship. What we never want to do is act like any one season or one moment is the last season in the history of that plan. So we've always got to make sure that if we do something, we've got to think of the consequences. And maybe the anecdote everybody remembers, and because it worked, was in that League Two promotion year when we took a decision and we heavily invested and us at that point. But I think the numbers were very different, the finances were very different, and the landscape was very different. So I think our league position will impact what we do in January. There is no doubt about that. But I don't want to be too positive or too negative from that. It's going to move it, but it's not going to fundamentally change who we are. We're not going to have a personality transplant, whether we're 7th or 2nd, on the 1st of January. And I think it's really important that we run the football club in a way that is the same principles, and we behave in the same way and consistently. That's not, not without, it doesn't go without saying, but equally, we are ambitious and we do want to get there, and we know what this opportunity represents with where we're at this moment. But we also know it's a very tight league, and I think if you want my best guess, by the end of the season, I'm not too sure there's going to be much more than 12 points between 6th and 16th. I think it's going to be a very tight league, and our job and our aim is to be towards that first number, not the last number, but it could easily go either way.
I also think, Ben, we've got to respect the group and what they've done to this moment and put us in this position. We've got an exceptional group of human beings, not just football players. Like they're such an honest group. You can hopefully see that the supporters, even on the days we come up short in terms of quality, perhaps, or in terms of the result, the work ethic, the desire, the commitment, the aggression, the way they play, the way they go to the last moment. That's why we've got the number of points we've got, that with some good tactical organisation around it. So the last thing we would do to be able to improve would be to smash our transfer record or smash our wage structure or smash, the formula that has put us in this position. Our job is to add to it. And it's hard to improve the group because the group's strong. And within our constraints, we know that opens up a limited pool, but there are opportunities in January potentially to do that. And like Liam said, we'll explore all of those as long as they're nothing that would be detrimental to us longer term.
Cool. So speaking of the current group as well, obviously one element or one area where we may see some movement is in the loan players. We've got a couple of players that haven't had many minutes who have borrowed, a couple of others who have been a little bit more involved. Are we likely to see any movement in terms of return to loan clubs in the winter? And if we do, would we be looking to replace and retain that squad depth with other loans?
Yeah, good question. Gary, I'm more than happy just to be really open and transparent with this rather than trying to play cards close to our chest. So I think really clearly we brought Finn Barbrook in because we knew that Dom Jeffries was a medium-term injury. We didn't expect him back till November time. And the same with Frankie, with Jack Moylan. So Jack's back. Obviously Dom's back. So assuming nothing dramatic happens between now and the 1st of January, they're both situations that we're going to look at. In Finn's case especially, Finn hasn't had any minutes with us in the league, but he played minutes for Ipswich in the Carabao Cup. When you play in the EFL Trophy, it doesn't count towards the 2-club rule per season. So really, we've made an agreement with Ipswich that Finn's got a knock. He could possibly be fit for that last week of December, but realistically, that's not right for us to stop him then going on loan somewhere else in the second half of the season. So Finn will go back to Ipswich. Dexter was just a loan to the 1st of January. So that will end after we play Huddersfield. Frankie's one we're assessing because of now injuries in other positions at the top end of the pitch. And Justin's one that we're committed to for the season, and we really believe he's got a big impact to play. So I think that covers all four. The second point about size of squad, look, we're out of all 3 cup competitions, so we know that come the 5th of January, we've got 21 games, hopefully, depending how you look on it, how optimistic you are, hopefully 24. But we think we need a tighter group for the second half of the season so that everybody's part of it, everybody's able to play. So our real aim in January is to how can we strengthen the 11, which is going to be tough, and how can we actually streamline the squad so the depth doesn't get changed, but maybe the numbers reduce a little bit so everybody's closer to getting minutes and playing a part.
Cool.
Brilliant. Thank you.
On the flip side of that, I mean, I imagine that the answer to this will probably be yes, but are you starting to receive more phone calls from agents because of the strong start that we've had to the season? And has there been any concrete interest in Michael Skubala?
I'll do part 1, Liam does part 2, yeah? So are you asking, Ben, if that's interest in our players or agents offering us players?
Well, both if you want to answer them, but mainly the interest in our players.
Yeah, so we're usually the last to hear about that when there's interest in our players. And it's really simple for us. Unless something is impossible for us to turn down, we are not in the place where we want to weaken the group in January whatsoever. So our job going into January is to strengthen. So yeah, that would have to be an absolute no-brainer for us. And you can't, what's the word, never say never, because of course somebody could, especially in the landscape of football in this country, someone could offer something absolutely ridiculous for any player, and at that point you have to look at it. But our intention is that we come out of January adding quality to the group and not losing anyone that's got a big part to play. I think how we try and operate, and different clubs are different, is rely as little as possible on agents speculatively calling about players that we might sign. Because in my experience, agents very, very rarely ring you about very good players and mostly ring you about pretty average players that you don't particularly want to sign. So we have to do our work. We've got a lot of good guys led by Joe Hutchinson in the recruitment team. Guy that's just joined us from Cheltenham, Dave Cohen, who does the analysis part of that, watching loads and loads of players on video. We've got a data scientist looking at how we identify players through data. We've got 10, 12 scouts out every weekend covering games at different levels. So our job is to identify potential targets and then refine those with the coaching staff amongst financial parameters, squad depth, squad needs, to come up with a couple of players that we hope we can add in January. But yeah, we tend to pass on the agents trying to flog us bad players to Joe.
Yeah, what was part 2? Interest in Michael, was that?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, candidly, yes, there definitely has been. I think when you're plus 15 on budget as we are right now in the league, the last year in terms of where we finished into overall budget, Michael sold over £3 million worth of players. Of course there is interest, but I go back to what we're doing at Lincoln City, and hugely respectful and appreciative and supportive of what Michael does, but there is a whole a group of people and workforce at the EPC that are massively pivotal to what we're doing and significantly add value every day. And where I think we're really proud is we've had a member of the backroom team very recently, non-coaching side, but very, very important to what we do, turned down an opportunity to join a very senior role in a Premier League club. So I think we've got, a really, and a proper, bona fide Premier League club at that as well. So I think we've got, we all know what we're trying to achieve here. We've got a lot of people kind of wholly committed to the cause. Michael obviously attracts a lot of attention because his name is above the door, and rightly so. But equally, as you saw with Scotty, moving to a giant of a club of Glasgow Rangers, there's lots of interest in all of our team to some degree. So we're reasonably calm. There's obviously plans are always afoot. Jez and I are always tasked with that by board and by ownership in that regard. But I want to try and get the message right here. Of course, there's interest. Like the whole football world, is very aware of what's being achieved here right now and for a period of time. But I'm not too nervous about that. Football's football, but we're in a reasonably good place, and there's a lot of people at the EPC that is working incredibly hard to kind of keep this hamster wheel going and keep doing what we're all aiming to achieve.
Now, that's really interesting because that leads me on to something else. You say there we're in a really good place, and I've kind of done an article over the last couple of days. I can't understand why I had a certain malaise going into Barnsley, and I think that we've seen it from some elements of the support and not the usual suspects. There seems to have been this strange malaise over the last couple of weeks. We're third in the league with a budget that far outweighs where we are. So as a club, do you find it frustrating that there is still that element of feeling that we're underachieving when we narrowly beat Port Vale 1-0 or something along those lines? And please be harsh with me, because the last couple of weeks I've been one of the worst defenders.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things on that. So somebody said to me on Tuesday night, I'm getting really sick and tired of us having a really good start in seasons and and falling away and finishing mid-table. Well, I think I'll take it as the biggest compliment we'll ever get, that if we're getting fatigued at Lincoln City finishing mid-table in League One, especially when, I don't want to labour this, but at times it feels like we've got a pea shooter and we're going up against those with an absolute armory full of weaponry. So I'll take it as a compliment on one hand. I guess maybe the only thing to touch upon in this is a large part of what this football club has been about and will be about is that togetherness and that spirit. And we sell it to players, we sell it to staff members. We have agents in the stands, we have players' representatives in the stands, we have all kinds. And I think that togetherness and that positivity is really important. So on one hand, we'll take it as a compliment that people expect more from us. On another hand, I think we all want to, and we can all expect more, and rightly so. We enjoy that challenge. I think the only thing we'd ask is that we don't lose sight of, the significant overachievement. What we are doing here already. If we finish in the top half, it's an incredible overachievement. But equally, we're competitive beasts ourselves, and we understand the sentiment. So I just think it's that fine balance. We want the support, we need the support. It's a whole, it's a whole part of it. But equally, we understand expectation is high, and look, we all want to break through that glass ceiling that we've not been able to do. But again, I look at it with, we've got the highest points achieved at home in League One this year. We were actually talking about this in a board meeting earlier. We've spent the most time out of any team in League One leading in games. So maybe, at times, sometimes not frustration, but sometimes you go, oh, that nips a bit. I thought we were doing okay. But we understand it. We equally understand it and respect it as well.
Gary, I think that the part of the difficulty in English football is it's a slog. It is. It's a slog for the players and the staff, 46 games, 3 cup competitions, even though we haven't gone so far in all of them. But that it's a slog for the supporters as well. Like, it is. Totally get that. Like, that game against Port Vale was no fun, but we have to win it because there's going to be a few of them. And if you want to do anything on your days where you don't play that well, you have to find a way to win 1-0 and add 3 points on. And that's probably, like, we know that sometimes we don't play to the level that we want to play, but we have to find a way to win on those days. And that often defines the league table. It's very rare that your league position is defined by how well you play on your good days. It's mostly on the days where it's not perfect. Can you find a way to win? And it's a low-scoring sport, this. So quite often, the winning team isn't the team that necessarily deserves it. Liam's already told you, it's 46.1% of our minutes played this year we've been leading in. At home, I think it was around 10 minutes between Wigan's first goal and our equaliser, maybe a bit more. It might have been 15, 20 minutes. Apart from that and the 30 seconds at the end of the Exeter game, which was probably our best performance of the season, we've never been behind at home. So we've scored 12 goals. We've scored the first goal in 12 out of 19 games. So there is going to be a part of the second half that can look clunky. It can. And it's an invasion game, football. So there's 2 teams and the other team's allowed to do something to try and get back into the game. And sometimes we have to try and counteract that. We do. And on other occasions, like the other night, they only play 1 up front. We've got our +1 at the back, with 2 centre halves against 1. And we can make attacking substitutions to try and see the game out a little bit differently. There are occasions when people go and put 4 on the top line and you're winning 1-0 with 15 minutes to go. And you do rightly think, well, we're really good at defending our cage. We're really good at defending our goal. We have to have a +1 there. Otherwise, that will be almost stupid and negligent of not changing it when we've got someone as adept as Riley Taylor on the bench to come in and do that job. So we have to find a way to win on the days it's not perfect. We know that it's also an entertainment business and we want to play in a way that excites the supporters, but we want to win. And sometimes we have to win ugly, and those points are worth just the same come May. But on a wet, cold, windy, horrible Saturday like Port Vale was, I totally get that people go home a little underwhelmed. I do. And then when we back that up with we weren't happy with the performance and the goals and the result against Huddersfield, although that's probably the worst draw we could have had at that stage of the competition, because when, let's be honest, don't want to talk about it, but when the big budget teams make a lot of changes, their second 11 looks exactly the same. And even the substitute coming on is £1 million signing. So that was a tough draw for us. But we want to play in a way that excites the supporters, but we have to win. And what we have done well at home is found a way to be really, really, really hard to play against. And the supporters are a massive part of that. Liam's so right. Like, honestly, we speak to other clubs, other players, agents, even an agent who was at the game the other night who represents a lot of players that works for a big agency. And he said, like, the one thing everybody says is, like, oh, God, we don't want to go to Lincoln. And that's part of how the team plays, but it's part of the stadium as well, and how the fans create such a good atmosphere for us. So sticking together and creating that atmosphere and making sure that we're good on the bad days as well as good on the good days, I think will help us get the number of points that we want to achieve to get what we all want to achieve, which is to finish as absolutely high as we can in this league. And we know that from 3rd to 6th there's a reward, from 1 to 2 there's a massive reward, and we want to fight like hell as long as we can to stay in those positions.
Super stuff. Thank you. No, it's a little bit of a slight change in tack now in terms of questioning. So obviously we've spoken about James Collins a little bit earlier on. We've had a question that's from the Discord that says, what's the protocol or like the policy around discussing player injuries, and how do you balance player privacy with public interest?
Yes, good question. And I think we as a football club pride ourselves on being as transparent as we possibly can be. But there are moments in time where we probably don't want to give every bit of medical information about players. I think in this case, it had to be announced, and we felt that it was right and proper that the club made a statement. We don't usually do that with injuries. We usually let Michael pick that up in his pre-game pressers or his post-game interviews. But we just thought the severity and the conjecture, and much better for us to own the narrative and be really clear with what the prognosis was for James, rather than allowing it to be, a little bit of rumour and speculation when he's not in the squad. So yeah, I think we always value the privacy of the player. there's a degree to which we'll speak to the player and the medical department about what we're going to put out in the public domain. But we also want to be honest and open with our supporters, and where the two things don't contradict each other, as much as we possibly can, we want to tell the truth and be really open about it.
Smashing. Well, as Ben's mentioned, we've segued here into kind of squad management, injuries, etc. The next section of the podcast, so to speak. And so we're going to ask about a specific player, if that's okay. Eric Ring, because he seems to have become something of a fan favourite. We haven't seen as much of him, perhaps, as some supporters would like to. He's been with us, 18 months now. The exact question was, what does he need to do to earn a start?
Shall I just go back one pace? Because I'm aware that this will always be a question. And, when we talk about maybe how we go about making signings, and I explained that to you a little bit earlier about, the recruitment team's job is to identify potential players that we can bring to the club. The coaching staff, led by Michael, their job is to evaluate those players and to make sure that those players fit our game model, and are players that we believe can play in our team, and that those coaching staff, but Michael in particular, wants to bring to the club. So, just to put to bed once and for all this, is it a club signing or is it a manager signing? Like, we are the club. Like, every single one of us is an employee for this football club. We work for the fans. We work for the ownership. Every signing is a club signing. No signing is made without that being a tick from Michael. And beyond the tick from Michael, it has to fit some other criteria. And some of them are very, very low risk. So Sonny Bradley is a low-risk signing because we know exactly what he can do. He did it for the last 15 games or a big chunk of last season for Wycombe. Ditto James Collins. Ditto, Conor McGrandles. Ditto Adam Reach. So those senior players have got a massive bank of evidence at our level or higher. They're no-brainers for us to sign in terms of will they fit. However, there are financial challenges sometimes to sign peak players or proven players at our level, or players who have won multiple promotions or scored multiple number of goals. At the other end of the scale, we do, as a football club, want to trade, and it's really, really important we bring players in with potential. But those players are going to be calculated risks. We have no proof. That there is no proof to say Eric Ring will do X, Y, or Z in League One. But we think to push the club forward and to really make strides and to do what we did in the last transfer window when we sold X million number of players in terms of Sean Rowan and Ethan Urahan and Jogo Makama. Two of those have come through our scholarship program, but none of them had played in League One before we'd signed them either. And they all had bumps in the road to get to where they got to. So the reason for saying all of that is Eric's not arrived at this moment without us having to look at the context of the last 15 months. And probably the context of the last 15 months is put him in a position where he's got a little bit more to prove, because it has taken him some time to adapt to the physicality of League One, the intensity of League One. We didn't help him at times last year when we brought him into the team and we played a back three and he played at wing back, and we knew that we weren't helping him in that moment, but we have to find a way to win as well. And at that moment, we were searching for what that right formula would be. Whereas the last 10, 12 games of the season, he did much better. And there was moments where he shows he can create and score goals. And then the final part of it probably is, as we've evolved, we've understood that to get promoted with the 18th budget in this league, we're probably not going to be a possession-dominant team. We're probably not going to be able to go and sign all the players who have 200 appearances that are the best technical players in this league. I think we've got some very good technicians, by the way, in our team, but we're not going to be 60, 65% possession team like a Huddersfield, like a Bolton. So what we do out of possession is absolutely crucial. And Eric's challenge is to make sure that all the good moments he has with the ball, all these moments where he can attack, get people off the edge of their seat, go by people, score goals like he did away at Salford, create goals, he's still got to make sure that isn't compromised by his work off the pitch. So one of the best things I saw from my seat on Tuesday night was his defending header in our penalty box late on, because that's what he needs to do to be trusted to start games. What does he do out of possession? Because whether we like it or not, a big chunk of why we are in our league position is goals against, how few chances we allow other teams to create, how good we are out of possession. And that's the next step for Eric. Does he need some opportunities? Of course he does. But in football, you have the opportunity every day to earn those opportunities by what you do in training. And then you have to force the head coach, the manager, to pick you. And then when those moments come, you have to grab them. And it's not easy for every single player at different moments. There's different bumps in the road. But Eric's in a miles better place now than he was 12 months ago. Like mentally, he's completely and utterly got his head around this crazy League One and what it looks like, and how he just couldn't believe the physicality, the long balls, the second balls, what that looked like when he first arrived here. We signed these players on 4-year contracts because we know there's got to be some period of transition. But we also know we won't get every single one right. But we also know that when we do get them right, there's an exponential value to the club in terms of potential future sales. So I don't know if that's answered your question. He just needs to be more consistent. He does need some opportunities, and we know that, and we talk about it constantly. He is doing everything he can do in terms of what he does every single day on the training pitch, and his manner where he is around the building. And we still think we've got a player there. We do. We still think there's a player in there, and sometimes it might take an opportunity over Christmas. We've got some injuries to the squad now. He's getting closer and closer and closer. Plymouth was probably a tough one for him and the coaching staff, and that was a difficult one for him to recover from. But he has, and now the next step is for him to get the trust of the coaches to start games regularly.
Cool. Following on from that, obviously, Eric and Ivan Varfolomei have arrived with a bit of fanfare, but they're not regular starters, as we've just discussed. How do the club integrate and support players from abroad that are not playing that regularly? Do you remain sort of heavily involved at that point, Jez, or is that handled by the coaching team?
I think it's handled by everybody, Ben, to be honest. It's like we've got massive support structures here for the players. We've got a performance psychologist who speaks to them. So he's in our building every week. The medical sports science guys are fantastic because they get to see the players when the guard's down and they're saying what they really think when there's no coaching staff around. So how they support the players is really important. Adam Thurston, our head of football ops, just with all the practical stuff. You know, for example, I don't know, when they come over, they need a national insurance number, they need a bank account, they need a phone, like all the basic stuff. Like that's really, really important we get that right. Where do they live? So, for example, probably well documented, but Ivan is Jack Moylan and Freddie Draper's next door neighbour. There's a little community of players that we've got in an apartment block. So Jack looks after him a lot, spends a lot of time with him. The players are very good, even the different generations almost of players, like involve him in everything. We've got Ivan having 2 English lessons a week away from the club, and then 1 with Chris Cohen and an English teacher at the club, at the training ground, around like the football vernacular and the vocabulary that he's got to learn. And I saw him yesterday, at something to eat with him yesterday actually, and he said, Jez, I know everything. I know jump, I know second ball, I know screen, I know. So he's got all of the Chris Cohen terminology of that half of the pitch.
I think the fans will be interested to know, does he know Gerrit forward?
when he first spoke to Chris and Michael, he said his favourite bit of football is second balls, which is quite unusual for a young midfield player. Now, we obviously understand when we sign the players, we've got a big responsibility to try and help them off the pitch as well. But there's an age group cohort, if you want, that are very, very good at integrating those players and different personalities and different characters. And look, in Ivan's case, he's had some tough things to deal with in his young life already. You know, like he actually managed to get to see mum and dad in the last international camp because they were able to get over to Turkey through his Ukraine game, and doesn't see them very often at all. Obviously, family having to up sticks from Crimea and move to the western Ukraine. He knows what it is to get through tough moments, Ivan. And he also understands, because we do prepare them, that it's not a fairy tale. You're not going to probably come in and start every game. And he understands we're third in the league, and you know everybody will have their own opinions of players. But Conor McGrandles has been playing absolutely out of his skin all season, and at the start of the season, everybody would have questioned whether Conor McGrandles can play as a 6, and is he more of a 6'8", and how we're going to replace Ethan. And we did genuinely think we were replacing Ethan with Ivan, and that Conor might play a little bit more of the forward role. And then Conor's been just the Scottish Rodri for the first half of the season. So that's been a benefit. And Tom Bayliss has also, like the other night, showed what a level Bayliss can play at. So it's tough to get in the team, but that doesn't mean to say we don't do everything to help those players on a day-to-day basis on the training pitch, with all the support off the pitch, and then the practicality of just him spending a little bit of time getting used to what English football's like. And I think the best way for Ivan is, like what happened the other night, he gets on the pitch, sees that the last 10, 15 minutes, wrap the ball through the lines like we know he can, manage space in the middle of the pitch and know when to jump and when to hold his position, even at a strike from 25 yards. And most important, finishes the game winning. Because so far, it does happen sometimes when there's weakened teams or changing of players in the cup competitions and you lose a couple of those games. Again, you're at the crime of the scene of the crime. And it's a little bit, maybe association by implication a little bit, where it's hard to then force your way into the starting 11. So Ivan's in good shape. There's so many games. We've got 5 games in 15 days over Christmas. I'm sure he'll get plenty of opportunities, and Eric was saying.
Sorry, I'm just thinking poor old Ivan has an English lesson, then goes back and Jack Moylan speaks to him. I can't understand.
Well, the funniest thing ever is Jack's learned some Ukrainian.
Oh, God.
Just imagine that.
Oh, dear. So just to wrap up current kind of squad management, we've got some players out on loan. I see today MJ's had some really positive comments. Now he's got in the side. Oshin's playing regularly for Boston, Zane as well. It's kind of, how is it decided where and when players go out on loan? Kind of who makes those decisions and what leads them?
Yeah, very similar to recruitment process, Gary, just collaboration. Like Joe leads on options that we could find. We'll have had meetings about what they need as the next stage of their development. We'll have levels that we think they're ready to play at. Sometimes we'll have contacts in different countries. So the 2 in Northern Ireland are both management teams that have worked in the Republic of Ireland, and we know them, so we trust them with the players. Oshin, for example, going out to Boston, conversations all the time around, is that the right level? Do we try and bump him a level? How many games will he play? What position is he playing in? So collaborative again. Just all we want is the right outcome for the player, and everybody's got their opinion. And then we're Lincoln City, so we don't have the choice of everyone, and we've got to be cognizant of the fact that if there's a really good option comes into us, and that club and that manager really wants the player, and they're gonna, like with MJ, that's been a real learning curve for him, because he's gone to a club at the start of the season, never conceded a goal hardly in any game, started the season really well, and he's had to fight to get his opportunity. Spoke to Paddy McCourt, who's the assistant manager there last week, and he said he played a cup game and he was absolutely outstanding, to a point he could not be left out of the team. They had to pick him. And that's a brilliant example to young players, even to Eric and Ivan. Like, that is what you have to do. You have to force the manager's hand. Then it's up to him now to keep the shirt. Zane's been in and out of the team, but played a lot of football, and we're really happy with how he's been progressing. Joe's actually going over to watch him tomorrow night, so we're constantly in contact with the club, constantly getting footage that's reviewed by the coaches, but also recruitment team going out to watch those players live. So some of it's opportunity, but mostly it's like trying to plan what's best for the next stage of their development, and trying to take a medium to long-term view on that. We could have kept Zane around the building in August, and at that time, what was it, Liam? 42 days, I think, was the gap between signing 2 and signing 3. So I was getting killed, and we didn't have enough substitutes in games and stuff like that. The easy thing is just to keep Zane, but we knew that he wouldn't get enough football, and for him to be looked after long term, we need to try and find the right club. So, yeah, just collaboration, trying to find the right answer for everybody, rather than that being led by one person. That's back to what Liam said. I think any decisions get made at a club that's single point of success, single point of failure, your chance of failure is going to increase exponentially. I think what we do really well here is make sure lots of people have their lens on decisions, and then collaboratively come to like the right decision, because that gives you the better chance of making some better decisions.
Cool, thank you. So just again, moving on to sort of the next section now about around coaching, style of play, and the performances that we've had this season. Was it always the plan to play this current style of football, or has it changed based on resource? I know we've spoken before about when Michael came in and the plans changing around that, but in terms of where we are at the moment.
Yeah, maybe if I go quickly first and then give Jez a chance to wet his whistle and then come in. But I think the bit we've always got to recognise is what goes on in around the football pyramid and trends and what football looks like. So I don't mean this in a pokey way, but I guess the inference in your question is almost like, or the suggestion is we might not be the prettiest in the room at times. But I think it goes back to that point that the amount of times that we've spent in games leading and what that means. It goes back to effectiveness, and I think what we've always tried to do as a football club. And this is going to sound incredibly corny, but I'm sure people have heard of the Ben Hunt Davis book. Does it make the boat go faster? We've kind of taken that and rewritten that and says what makes our boat go fastest, and we have to make deliberate decisions because we don't have, let's call it the resources, the Premier Leagues, where you're getting the best of everything. You have to choose where are we going to get bang for our buck. So before Jez goes into the technical element, I think the biggest thing that we always look for as a football club and where we think we have our edge is we're very, very deliberate about what does make that boat go faster. What is the thing that's going to make the biggest difference? And we don't get too hung up at times what people think about that, how it's portrayed, we are very results based and outcome orientated. Now, I don't want that to go too far in terms of what's said behind what the code behind that, because Jez will give you far more detail in that. But to then to bridge that between your question around budget and that, like we do want to be really efficient and really effective. So one of the things that we are measured very highly on by the board is our cost per point. How effective can we be? And that leads you to certain decisions and leads you to certain things. But that's not binary. Are we going to be a creator or are we going to be a destroyer? That's not. That's definitely not how we look at this. But yeah, effectiveness is important. What makes the boat go fastest is important. That is Lincoln City language. And then the product and how that looks, that's down to Jez and the technical team. But what we're not going to do is, I don't know, Jez mentions the BBC stats. We're not going to take, the BBC highlights and say we want to be 63% possession, because that's just a vanity metrics. It's going to be things that deliver outcomes and outputs. So, Jez, do you want to dovetail that, mate?
Yeah, thanks for giving me some time off there. I think let me add some historical context to this first as well. I believe a football club should represent the football club and not an individual's ego. So I believe, looking back at the history of Lincoln City Football Club, and you two guys know this miles more than me, but trying to know iconic managers in the history of Lincoln, Graham Taylor, Colin Murphy, Keith Alexander, Danny Cowley, probably not proponents of like 100 passes to get to the halfway line. An air raid siren that goes off in our stadium every time we get a corner kick. I think our fans, it feels to me, they want positive front foot, aggressive football that's played in the opposition's half. Win set plays, get balls in the box, be an aggressive front foot team. So I hope I've got that right. I think that's what engages our supporters, and I think that's when we get the stadium really rocking. When we get that done well, Luton at home springs to mind. First half against Chelsea definitely springs to mind. So does first half against Donny. Actually, I thought we were good. I thought first half the other night, really aggressive out of possession. So we want to be an aggressive front foot pressing team. We also want to win games. So our style is really try to get mashed together. But what do the supporters want? What gets our fans excited? How can we fill the stadium? How can we make it a really intimidating place for other teams to come by engaging our supporters in the process? And almost modern direct football. So when we get that wrong, it looks ugly. When we get that right and we hit our sweet spot, it's really hard to play against. It's really effective. We play through the lines. We're vertical. We're fast. We're forward. We get balls in the box. We score quick goals. We break defensive lines. We win the ball back quickly. We suffocate some other teams. That's what we try and play. So we want to play in a way that engages our fan base, that enables an 18th place budget to get promoted. So therefore, we're not going to be possession dominant. We're going to be just really hard to play against. And then we'll measure the data that we think matters, not what the BBC or any other website matters. So for us, possession doesn't matter. What matters for us is effectiveness in possession. and we've got data to challenge that ourselves. So that like defensive line broken for us is a real key stat, because I'll give you an example. That Reading game, if you'd not seen the game, the first game of the season, and you just looked at the pure like generic data, you thought that Reading would have dominated that game, when actually we created all the best chances because we broke the opponent's line 5 or 6 times. They didn't against us. They had 2 shots from 20 yards that our goalkeeper tipped onto the post twice, but didn't create big chances. So that's how we want to play. We want to play in a way that minimises chances against, creates as many chances as we can for the amount of possession we have. It's commensurate with the budget level we have in the league we have, when whether we like it or not, we're trying to beat teams, and even an opponent on Saturday that is in the bottom 4 now, but has almost double our budget, that will be challenging to get in the top 6. So for us, it's effectiveness, not a beauty competition, and playing in a way that maybe represents a little bit of what Lincoln City is all about.
Somewhere in the distance, all this talk of data, there's a Chris Lamming out there that thinks somebody's just walked over his grave. He can literally feel it when data starts being talked about on the Stacey West. He's got a sixth sense. Ben, I'm just going to skip through 2 of the questions, looking at time, if that's okay, and just move on to the succession planning and long-term strategy, if that's okay with you guys. So we've spoken already a little earlier on about what the overall aim is. At some point in the future, it's Championship football. So in terms of succession planning, and I think this goes, players, management, coaching at every point, how do you kind of manage that? We potentially could be in the Championship next year, but we might not be. Do you have to have 2 sets of players you're looking at? When do you decide that you're looking kind of at the Championship rather than League One? I mean, it sounds complicated.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, and I guess that's part of the challenge, and that's the part of the beauty of the position we find ourselves in. But yeah, you absolutely have to be doing that, and you're planning for all eventualities. I think you've also got to be, very, very careful, without speaking about former clubs and former employers. I remember once at my former employer getting in a little bit of a rapping over the knuckles from the chairman because we presented a League One budget and we're in 10th place, and he was asking about the league above. And by the end of the season, not many weeks later, we were actually writing a League Two budget. So I think you've just got to be incredibly careful. The beauty of the pyramid in England is there's promotion, and the jeopardy is that there is relegation, and you've got to be so careful with that. I think without giving too many trade secrets away, a lot of our contract modelling, a lot of what we do is built to plan for those scenarios. One of the biggest learnings I had as chief exec, and we had as a football club, is that promotion from League Two. We had too much of our payroll tied up in players that were never gonna, be big features in any League One campaign. And that sounds incredibly, crass, or it's a very simple explanation of it. But that is part of our jobs and part of what we have to do. But equally, this is where, when you look at the squad building and you come into the technical side of what Jez do, we are also looking at, who comes on that journey with us, how would we transition if we ever get there. So it's never, it goes back to it, it's never the last season in Lincoln City's history when we're, whatever we are doing, that is for sure. And I think you use the word succession planning. We've also got to have succession planning for staying in the division, because doing well, our players attract interest, our staff attract interest. So we're actually broadly doing that anyway. The bit, let's go back to some of our less brilliant moments that we've had. The year that we hit the League One playoff final, and I think we've been pretty open about it, where we probably got it. Well, we got it wrong, was that we chased the wrong list for too long. And I think there's always going to be learning from those situations, but we're still going to have, if you want, 2 lists. It's not quite as binary as that. We're still going to have processes that go on looking at those elements. But yeah, I think we've done a lot of growing up as a football club over the years, and we've got to, learn where we've done things well and not. But yeah, short answer, maybe, which Jez and I definitely aren't famous for, but we of course we are succession planning, and that's what we've got to do, and we've got to look at all eventualities and all scenarios. Equally, that is also helpful to some degree when players are looking at you as a potential destination, or staff members are looking at you as a potential future employer, when that can be, one of two different scenarios, and they can see the upside as well. So yeah, it's a help as well as a hindrance.
I think just to add to that, like Liam's 100% right. Like our squad's never going to go through windows, never changing. So we're constantly trying to plan. It's not as easy as that, but trying to plan the future. We've got some shorter term contracts. We've got some longer term contracts. We've got to try and work out when's the right moment to sell, when's the right moment to keep certain players. You've always got to be conscious of not wanting too many players in a certain position to be out of contract in the same window and having a big rebuild. We looked at, like last summer, being honest, it's like, the Jenga puzzle. It's like, do we, Sean Rowan, Ethan Erahan, Paudie O'Connor, Jovan McCarma, all in the same window. We knew that'd be tough. And to try, but we've got to try and come out of that stronger for it, with more depth in the squad as well. So it's not just planning for the next league. I think it's just always planning for the next season, trying to make good decisions. Not always easy, not always in your control to do, but as much as possible, so that you're balancing how many players are out of contract every summer, how many assets are in the group, what's the average age of the 11, what's the average age of the squad, what pathways are there for players who you think could come through. And partly as well, you asked the question earlier, we've also got a succession plan, the head coach, because if he continues to overachieve to the level we are, that there will be interest, because let's be honest, not many managers' first job get to 100 games, and certainly not many that exceed budget and expectations as much as Michael has.
Cool. Next one, do we consider investment opportunities at this stage, with our good start, preparing for a possible spell in the Championship? I think that probably means anything that when we say consider, are we considering basically anything that's coming in, or is it always a more careful approach?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that 3D chess that we're constantly playing and managing and looking at. Certainly, in terms of any investment, in terms of into players, or actually into staff or technology or other things, they've always got to be considered with an upside in mind. So yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this, whatever we do here in the window, coming up in the next 40 days or so, it won't be because it's the last season at Lincoln City. So there has to be a lot of diligence and a lot of consideration, because we talk about it all the time. We can only spend it once. And that's where we accept that challenge. We relish that challenge. The fact that, it's on us to execute, and our sweetest spot is probably smaller than most. So yeah, there's definitely, we're always considering those elements. We're always looking at what can be done. We're definitely entrepreneurial. So I promise you, we take risks. We do take a lot of risks, but we've always got to manage that risk and balance that risk against being reckless. Our job is to be brave, but our job's also to show sound judgment and ensure that it's not a judgment for one window or one moment in time. It's a decision that, transcends windows and probably even seasons.
Cool. Smashing. Now, this is there is a perception, and I've pulled this will throw Ben completely, because I pulled this question down from a bit that we skipped. But that's what happens. There's a perception among some supporters, or certainly a belief, that this League One feels weaker than seasons previous. And I'd be interested to get the football club perspective on that, because is it just big teams underachieving, like teams like us, Stevenage, overachieving? Is it genuinely weaker? Is weaker actually stronger because we're all closer together? I mean, what does it look like for you guys on and off the field, I guess?
Yeah, I'm going to be really boring here. So what's been really interesting, that there was a study done by a university, and basically when fans or the public view is that, it typically means that there isn't somebody running away with it and the pack is tighter. And I think it goes back to that point I made. I'm not too sure there's going to be that many points between 6th and 16th by the end of the season. So is it look, let's Wrexham and Birmingham going out of the division, we cannot get away from that. But Birmingham most definitely were a championship club and a championship team in League One. So the absolute peak has gone. But they've been replaced by Cardiff. That's not, they're no mugs. That is for sure. I think we've just got a tighter pack. I just think there might be one or two at the top, maybe one or two at the bottom, and then there's a really tight group between it. And going back to that very clever study that's far too clever for me, it basically says that alludes to us all feeling that it's weaker or there's less quality, when actually technically it's just a tighter group. And there's an argument to say that there could be more quality, or at least there's just less, there's less difference between the teams. And I think that's why you see teams taking points off each other. I was also talking to another chief exec the other day, and I'm not too sure there's any football fan in League One that's that delighted with their team, because of that, that syndrome. Everybody looks at it and thinks, well, we've beaten these teams, but we've lost to here, and we could do better. So yeah, maybe deep rooted in the psychology of this, I can understand the thinking. But yeah, definitely, let's not hide away that there isn't a Birmingham in the division this year. But maybe you could argue there's one or two at the other end that aren't as strong. Definitely the case in the budgetary point of view, so we'd have to accept that. But then I just think we've got a really chunky middle pack, and everybody beats everybody, and that's probably leads into that perception. But yeah, I think it's a pretty competitive division, and I think football overall in this country and the EFL is just getting better and better and better, which is different to the style question. But in terms of the overall game, everything that goes behind it, the quality of head coaches, the quality of backroom staff, the quality of provision, that's definitely rising. We've got, the EFL League One is one of the greatest leagues in European football, and we're really lucky to work in it and compete in it.
Yeah, just to add to that, Gary, I think that's the margins of the games are so small that the falling the right side of the result often is dictated by the first goal. That's why we've been on the right side of a lot of results, but very marginally. And it's really hard to continue to do that in a low-scoring game when the two teams are so evenly matched and everyone's fit, everybody knows everything about everybody, everyone's analysed to the nth degree, everyone's got data, everybody knows who played where, everyone's well coached, everyone's well prepared. So the margins are small. Like, the one thing I would say is, and it's not a comment where I'm upset about this at all, but the club's paying twice and three times as much as we are to our players, but their players are definitely not twice or three times better than our players, like 100%. So that's why we can compete, because we've got some really good players. They're really well prepared, they're really well coached, and they give everything on the football pitch and they compete. So ditto probably another couple of clubs that are less fancied that are at the top end of the league as well. And we know the challenge is to be in this position after 30 games, because usually as games go on, the table starts resembling a little bit more like the budget table, because depth, especially through that December, January, February, when pitches get heavy, weather gets difficult, injuries come, usually the big hitters end up in those top six positions. So our challenge is to continue to gate crash that party.
Brilliant, thank you. Got three, let's say, quick fire, because I'm aware that we're nearly at the hour. So relatively, I don't know, quick fire, and you guys is really letting ourselves in for it. I get that already. But they are probably a little bit more operational ones. Shall I just roll with them, Ben? You're happy with that?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So this one, I think, is for Liam, more or less. Do rising costs mean we're likely to see another increase in season ticket prices, or would that vary depending on division?
Yes. Next.
Brilliant. Are there any plans?
Gary. Look, we've got to try and meet that. We want to be fair. We are looking at it. We're incredibly conscious that everybody's getting squeezed at the moment. Will there be a rise in prices? Yes. Will we try and be proportionate, respectful, and that? Yeah, of course we are. We're not numb to the situation, but we're going to try and look at all kinds of things that we can to help that.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was a much better answer than the yes. That was the same answer I got from Jez at a live show once when I said, did we have a sell-on fee for George Grant? And Jez went, yes. And that was it. We moved on. Are there any plans for a large screen that can show replays at the LNER Stadium? It's all that's missing from our matchday experience.
Yes.
Ooh.
Oh, there we go. That's brilliant. And finally, this isn't a yes or no. This is a journalist question with an open
player we're going to sign, Gary. You're trying to get a yes or a no.
I wasn't going to ask that. Do you know what? I was genuinely staying away. I don't know whether you've flown to Ireland recently or not. I can't see it. I can't see it on your board in the background there. I can't see any subtle hints anywhere.
There's no games of Hangman going on.
Yeah. But last one, how is the hunt for ongoing investment going?
Yeah, really well, thank you. So to be less facetious, we are pretty confident we will have a big screen in the stadium for the start of next season, potentially before. We're just working through some of those logistics at the moment. And then the hunt for investment, yeah, it's going very well. Hopefully we'll have something to say in the next 60, 90 days, maybe a bit sooner than that. We're just going through a few things at this moment in time. Actually, this we've recorded this on the back of a pretty important board meeting that we've just had. So yeah, incredibly well. I think maybe if you'll allow us to have our little moment in the sun at the moment, I think the most, one of the proudest things I've had as we've been going through this process is, the news about how Lincoln City does its business, what we do, the overachievement, what we stand for and how we go about it. That message has been spread far and wide. So while clubs have struggled to get the right type of investor, I think we've had enough interest that shows us that we're a very interesting prospect and people want to be part of what's going on here. So we're definitely in the final stages of concluding that investment search, and I'd be surprised if it takes as much as 90 days, but it could do. Just these things do. But hopefully we'll have some exciting news to come out of the club in the not too distant future.
And Gary, you said earlier about agents. Maybe I'll just reiterate Liam's words there. I know perhaps supporters don't always feel this, but within the industry, I hear this all the time, we're really well respected as a football club. And without doubt, the position we are in the league at the moment that we're fighting to maintain does open some doors for January in terms of interest in certain players, because we're always looking for players, aren't we, that can make a difference. And if they genuinely think we're in a position that we can maintain, or they can help us to maintain in the second half of the season, it's we've earned that right in the first 19 games, and we have to keep earning that right. But the other thing is, please don't underestimate the role the supporters play. Honestly, we spend so much time, I promise you, talking to our prospective signings about the type of club we are, the fan base, the support we get within the city, the currency of the club within the city, how you're made to feel within the city. I know that personally, not from Lincoln, but made to feel from Lincoln by working for this football club. And the atmosphere that the fans generate in the stadium is so important. It's important for us to win. It makes a massive difference to the players on the pitch, who are young men. Let's just be clear. They're good at footy, but apart from that, they're exactly the same as everybody else. And it makes a big difference, but it also makes a massive difference, the perception of our club and how we can attract players to the club. So we do a big job in selling that. The biggest people who sell the club the most for us are the supporters. So I just want to reiterate that. We'll only do this together. I know it's a bit cliche. I know it's a bit of a slogan or whatever, but it's so true. Alignment and togetherness. We're going to do it against the odds if we can achieve anything. And getting through them horrible, wet, cold afternoons against Port Vale, if they can win 3 points, are going to be really, really important in the second half of the season. So yeah, just a big thank you to everyone for the support, but making everybody realise how much it's valued by us. And how important it is to what we're trying to achieve.
Great stuff. Well,
thank you.
Yeah, super. Well, yeah, thank you ever so much for your time tonight, gents. It is very much appreciated. I'm sure you'll all have your warm homes to get to very shortly. So yeah, thank you for joining us tonight. And yeah, we will see you at the bank very soon. Unless there's anything else we need to say, Gary, there's only one more thing to say, isn't there? Up the Imps.